Hello, welcome. I'm Katy Appleton. I'm going to be giving you a short tutorial on some top tips to help you towards handstand and elbow stand in your yoga practice. And I've got the good fortune to be joined by Elvira today, so she's going to be my body for most of this, I would say. So handstand and elbow stand have very similar feelings in them, although of course one is on the elbows and one is on the hands, but we're using the same muscles, in fact, through the upper body. So we're using the arm bone into the shoulder joint and looping around. This is called a shoulder loop, often for many people refer to it, into the deep obliques. And then we start to switch on all the deep abdominal muscles to help us stay in the shape. And then also around the buttocks, around the sit bones, a little squeeze will really be of use because it switches on the pelvic floor and then helps us to ignite from the lower body upwards into the shape as well. So if we can maintain a consideration to those two areas, it can really help us in these poses. Of course, it can take days and months and years of practice to find some level of lightness inside of these shapes for sure. And so, just simply trying to fall in love with them and having some fun in them is really important. One of the fun ways to help, but you do need a wooden floor, definitely not a carpet, you won't be able to do it on a carpet, to help sort of get the front body ignited and working through the pelvic floor into the core will be some work sort of in a mini down dog into plank pose and sliding backwards and forwards. So Elvira's got socks on and she's going to be doing that. So coming forwards, please. So this is going to help you to get into a handstand or an elbow stand because basically there's three parts. There's the getting in, there's the holding, and then there's the getting out. So this is going to help stabilize you to get in and also out eventually. So what you're doing here is hip hiking the legs upwards as you then suck upwards into the toenails and then stretch back. Good. And again, sucking the leg bones upwards. So you're right on the toenails, balls of the feet, and going back down. And again, drawing up from the heads of the femur bones, a few more of those, and stay here and breathe here and reach and press the shoulders into the hands. Good. So you can really feel strength through the core and then lengthen back. Good. Bring your knees to the floor, stretch back Elvira into a child pose for a brief moment. So you could do that just solely as a practice and it can be really beneficial. It's strong. Even just doing one of those might be enough. But you can use then those muscles as literally a somatic awareness to take you into the next step, which would be to fly upwards or to lightly lift upwards into your handstand or elbow stand for sure. So obviously the second piece, as I've said to these poses, both elbow stand and handstand, are being in the pose. So yes, totally, you could use those muscles to help get you slowly into the shape, and that does come with time. But let's work with being in the shape for sure and seeing what that feels like. So we'll work with handstand to begin with, coming into it, holding it, and trying to slow our descent down out of it. So yeah, we'll need to get rid of the socks now. They won't be as helpful. Goody. And then why don't you use the mat, Elvira? So we'll work with handstand to begin with. And the other piece I'd like to offer Elvira is also a looped strap around the upper shoulder area. It does need to be shoulders width apart. That can be really in great service, otherwise it won't support. And I'll explain a bit more. So if you want to put that on, basically, as she gets into this, if you just turn towards, as you get into this, you want to be able to have a sense that there's something to resist against here, which then draws the head of the arm bones, humerus bones, into the joint, which then works these muscles through here, and then into, again, the obliques. And again, if you work with a little bit of a sit bone squeeze, that lifts the pelvic floor to help you again. So you might need to change whereabouts the strap is. Some people like to do it just below the deltoid muscle, and some people a little lower, you'll see. So Elvira, feel free to play around as the first time when you go into it, whether you need to lift the strap higher or lower. So again, lean the hands into the floor. Clearly they will be shoulders width apart. And this time, before you hop into it, just bring one leg forwards for me, Elvira, whichever one you decide to. And this leg will be bent. Lean your shoulders into your hands and then lift the other leg up. And before you kick No problem. Before you kick up here, make sure your shoulders are over your hands. Bend this knee and have that sense of, do you remember the abdominal muscles you just worked with the feet in the socks? Have a sense of trying to connect to those abdominal muscles and then use that to help you kick up. Kick up. Good. And you might get there on the first one, you might not. Good. You can please keep that bent leg into the body. I know it's not something that everybody teaches all the time, but please stay with that bent leg in. Pressing the shoulders down into the hands, hugging that bent leg in to support the core. A little bit of squeeze around the sit bone muscles. Yes, to come out of it. Totally fine. Good. How did it feel with the strap?
It was a bit too loose.
A bit too loose. Okay. Let's tighten that up momentarily, or you can get rid of it. Up to you. You're fine without it. Let's try that once more for the handstand, and then we'll go into the elbow stand. So the same again, let's take it really slow, Elvira, just for our friends at home. So hands, shoulders width apart. You want to make sure that you get on top of the pose so your shoulders go over your hands. One leg is bent. And you want to try and find those muscles that you were working with the socks as that other leg goes up straight. Lean forwards into the hands. Use those muscles to help suck the legs upwards into the wall. Kick if you need to. And eventually you find the wall. Great. And then use that bent leg into the body. Good. And a little squeeze around the sit bones just to help maintain that integrity. Front ribs close and send them to the thighs. Exactly. And then you can start to find, you can see she's finding what I call the break point, like when you are in a car. You can find the point where you can accelerate and pause and breathe. And then eventually you find that point to take you back down. Really nice. And then take a moment just to stand, breathe. And actually it truly is the same principle if you're doing an elbow stand. The elbow stand can be a bit more challenging for some bodies. Handstands, some people find a little easier because they've got more freedom in the arms, whereas when you've got the arms in this position, it can be a little bit more challenging to the upper body's integration. So there's some easy ways to help with that. One of the simplest steps is to clasp the hands rather than to do the most classic version is with the arms in this position. And sometimes some configurations of shoulder joints to arms just don't allow that to be of great ease. So I'm going to ask you to do the version with the hands clasped because most people when they're learning this will need that one to start with. So please, it's exactly the same principles. So the starting place for this one, if you come into the pose, is elbows underneath shoulders. If it goes wide, you can't support the upper body at all in this. They have to be underneath the shoulders. There's a great strength of the elbow underneath the shoulder. As soon as it drifts at all, you lose the integration. The shoulder blades will wing inwards and we don't have any strength at all in the upper body. So that's of vital importance. Keep checking your foundation. Clasp the hands together a lot. And then first base, of course, is always elbow dog without even lifting a leg, which may be really advantageous for many of you for a long time. This is how you build strength. And in that elbow dog, eventually you want to, as Elvira is doing, is trying to get your torso or your shoulders at least over your elbows. Good. Press the hands down into the floor and broaden the collarbones inside the shape. Clasp the hands together, keep breathing. And then do the same again. Lift one leg up, bend the other knee, and then kick. Good. Keep going for that, Elvira, because obviously got to find the wall, no problem. Good. The same principle here of hugging that leg in to work the core, and then eventually the other leg may or may not come off the wall. Keep hugging it in, and it's totally fine that you come flick-flack in and out of it. And it may be, Elvira, if you come a little closer to the wall, it may feel more comfortable. Try it. See if it would try on for size. And then try that once more. Good. So your shoulders are right over your arms or your elbows. Lift a leg, micro bend, a little kick, find the wall. Good. Close the front ribs, send them upwards to the thighs as you breathe here. Good. Send them upwards to the thighs as you breathe here. It's totally fine. You're doing an amazing job as I'm chatting away. Stay in child pose for a moment and breathe. So it has the same principles inside of this pose to the handstand, is that you get to the wall. Good. You could totally use the socks to help prime the body, and that you get to the wall And then you draw one leg into the body. That helps connect the core. So when you get to do it in the center, you don't flip. And then you do need to ignite the sit bones, and that will really help you. Down the line, of course, thereby you could then extend both legs upwards. So I'm not sure whether your body is happy to try that for one, just to see. So elbow comes to the floor. You can kick into it, come into one leg bent, other leg straight, and then see if it's available to come into extending the other leg upwards. So taking your time, no need to rush. Good. And you need to press down, keep going Elvira, you go at your own pace in this, through the shoulder joints to lift up. Think of tailbone upwards through your feet, tailbone upwards through your ankles. Continue breathing here. And actually, funnily enough, when you've got both legs up and you're used to what's going on in the upper body, it sometimes can be a little easier, right, than having one leg in. Good. And come back down into child pose. Wonderful. You did a great job. So eventually, when you start to become aware of the different sensations of being able to stabilize your body, upper body particularly in this shape, and play around with the legs in that, eventually straightening the other leg up makes it a lot easier, because you don't have the weights and masses of one side being slightly off balance and heavier because of the bend of the leg. Good. I hope you enjoyed some of those top tips towards your handstand and towards your elbow stand. Be well. Namaste. Thank you, Elvira.